for the night, sightseeing polite, I'm going. Wow for the night, sightseeing polite, I'm going.
During the development of many games, ideas are flung left, right and center. Many of these ideas make it into the final game, whereas many don't. They're just scrapped, wiped and deleted. Some of these unused ideas still remain in the game's code, but just simply remain unused. Today, we're going to be looking at the removed content of Bioshock Infinite. The HUD for Bioshock Infinite has actually changed quite a bit. The picture that you guys are looking at right now is the current HUD that we use in the game. Now, the picture that you guys are looking at now is the old HUD. As you guys can see, there's some sort of XP bar in the middle of the screen. To the left of the screen shows your vigors. It's sort of in a purplish blocks. The bar up the top, I suppose, is like your health meter, which is strange because it's displayed with a blue color. And of course the little numbers and icons and stuff down the bottom right is obviously your ammunition for your weapons. What's really interesting about this is like the design's different and all that, and that's quite obvious, but what really strikes me out with this picture is the XP bar down the bottom in the middle. So obviously the developers had some sort of idea that there was going to be some sort of like leveling system, whether it was with your vigors, your weapons, or just your character itself, whether you could like evolve and might be like a skill tree or like stats you could increase. I'm not really too sure, but it's an interesting concept, and to be honest, I really think it would have been a great idea if they added some sort of leveling or upgrading. Well, there's already an upgrading system, but like a leveling system in the game. Interesting to take into consideration. Also guys, here, this picture right here is an old design for the loadout screen. Basically, I don't know, they were kind of determining whether to create some sort of, maybe this was meant to be a multiplayer, I don't know if there's going to be multiplayer, but this is an old sort of picture of the loadout screen. Pretty interesting, and yeah. Gear stores and tailor machines were meant to be in the game, and they basically acted the same way as general store machines worked, like how you could purchase ammunition and how you can purchase health kits and stuff like that. So basically these machines would sell to you, gear pieces, and for some unknown reasons they were just completely scrapped out of the game. However, you can actually see the machines still in the game. They're just broken, and generally they contain one piece of gear lying next to them, and you just sort of pick them up. But these very machines were going to be an actual thing where you could purchase gear out of them. The picture that you guys are looking at right now was meant to be the interface for these machines. Skylines have actually been altered since the game's first development. Basically, original games had the idea that different objects like crates and carts and stuff would kind of fly on the skyline as well, ultimately forcing the player to have to switch skylines or switch directions to get out of the object's way. Basically, if the player was hit, the player would be then dismounted off the skyline, which would then inflict a shitload of damage or would pretty much just kill the player. Also, the old beta skylines, as you guys are looking at right now, they look way more detailed and way more textured and more mechanical than the skylines that you guys are looking at now. These are the current ones in the game. The beta ones look way better in my opinion, and I don't know why they kind of changed all these things to do with the skylines, because it sounds like their original ideas to do with the skylines sounded like way better, but they were ultimately, all those ideas and the look of it was scrapped, and yeah, it's kind of strange to be honest. In early trailers for the game, vigors appeared to be quite similar to plasmids. Basically, this was like their bottles, the vigor bottles actually look quite similar to the plasmid bottles and stuff like that. Also, your vigors were meant to work alongside with Elizabeth's powers, and this was seen with the crows, I believe, or something to do with one of your vigors, and basically you would use that, and Elizabeth would then kind of use one of her powers, and you'd pretty much just infuse one of your vigor powers with Elizabeth's powers, and it would create this massive like attack. But for some reason that thing was sort of like just forgotten about. Also a vigor telekinesis power. So telekinesis, as we know in like Bioshock 1 and 2, there is a plasmid called telekinesis, which allowed you to grab and move different objects from a distance and stuff. And in the trailer that you guys are watching at the moment, well, not the trailer, gameplay video that you guys are watching right now, this is an early gameplay trailer, and just before, you guys actually saw a short scene where he uses some sort of telekinesis to grab the vigor bottle. So yeah, interesting. Don't know why they got rid of telekinesis, because it's always been in the Bioshock games, but just really unknown why it was scrapped and deleted. A respawn tomb named Resurrecto was going to be the way you respawned, and basically these respawn tombs named Resurrecto, they're pretty much going to be used exactly how the Vita chambers were used in Bioshock 1 and 2. Pretty much what would happen is you would die and then you would respawn inside these little tomb things, and you would open the door and you'd be back in the level, and these tombs would be located all around the city, and depending on what checkpoint you'd be up to, basically when you die you'd respawn out of the Resurrecto that is closest to your checkpoint. So exactly how Vita chambers work. Pretty much this was scrapped in a late beta of Bioshock Infinite, so it was pretty close to making the final game. The design of it, as you guys can see right now, they actually made a whole model of it, so you guys can obviously tell that, you know, the developers were pretty serious about making this, that they actually made a models and stuff for it. But basically the way you respawn now is you're in a tear-like vision of Booker's office, and you just open the door and you're back into the level, you know. So I suppose that fits better in the game with tears and stuff like that, but I think Resurrecto would have been a really cool idea and stuff, and to be honest, I think I would have preferred it over the tear-like vision respawn system they've got going on, but yeah, pretty interesting. Although it's not a big and massive overhaul of a change, Booker's model was sort of changed in a way, not really dramatically like I mentioned, but he was actually changed. If you guys have a look at this picture right now, this is a picture of Beta Booker, and basically you guys can see that his arm actually has his sleeves pinned up and stuff. In the actual game, his sleeves are rolled up and he's wearing a vest and stuff like that, but like his sleeves are rolled up, so basically when you're holding weapons and stuff in the game and you got your vigors out or whatever, you can't see any part of his shirt. Basically this model of Booker with his sleeves all the way down, not rolled up or anything, remained in the game until pretty much late 2012, until the Beasts of America or something, one of the Beast trailers, the Beast trailer or whatever, later revealed that his outfit and stuff was different. So they obviously had a pretty good mindset they were going to keep Booker like this, but for some reason they decided, nope, we're going to roll his damn sleeves up. So yeah, don't know why they did, but it's pretty interesting. The alpha and beta version of Elizabeth is quite different than the Elizabeth that we know. Basically the alpha and beta versions of her basically showed that she could use powers, and these powers revolved around quantum physics and was sort of like a magic. She had the ability to raise storms, use things like telekinesis, combined objects through like fusion, which you guys saw just before in the trailer. She combined like all those pots and stuff into like a magma ball, and then Booker would use the telekinesis to fling it at the enemies. It's sort of weird, and then they just kind of scrapped that. They're like, hang on, we don't really care. The only thing that really Elizabeth can do to aid you in battle is like open the tears, which would give you like, oh shit, an extra skyhook, or oh shit, you know, there's an oil spill that I can incinerate or whatever, you know. Like it's sort of weird how they got rid of her like magic abilities, which would actually really help you out, you know, like her being able to raise this big like magma ball and then you can like fling it at them or something. I don't know why they got rid of that whole idea. To be honest, there's a lot of ideas in this removed content that I think Irrational Games should have kept, but hey, not my game. But yeah, really weird how they got rid of her abilities and stuff, so strange. In very early versions of the game, Zachary Hale Comstock was a middle-aged man with slicked back hair, a scar over his eye, and was wearing sort of glasses. Pretty much he was decided to be removed, and obviously he's now a more older man due to the time, the whole time travel thing with the Lutesses. It's basically, Booker in the future sort of thing like that. But in very early versions of the game, Zachary was actually a younger man. Textures of this guy and a poster of him can actually be found at the back of one of the buildings somewhere in the game. Where it is, I don't really know. But this is interesting because obviously Irrational Games had the idea that the Comstock, that was in the very early versions of the game, was around the same age as Booker. The Comstock that's in the final game is much older than Booker, and it's obviously explained why, because of his whole baptism and stuff. But obviously there was some sort of different storyline, not entire storyline, but like different plot behind the whole, it's hard to explain this, behind the whole like time travel thing, and because of the fact that he's younger means he stayed parallel to Booker's timeline. It's really hard to explain, and I hate explaining these time travel things because it really confuses the fuck out of people. But somehow in the very early versions of the game, this Comstock somehow stayed parallel to Booker's timeline, and I find that interesting. And then it's just weird how they decided, oh, actually, hang on, it'd probably make more sense if he was older. So it's probably better that they went with an older Comstock, but still it's interesting that Comstock was originally meant to be around the same age as Booker, so yeah. Before the game's core concepts were finalized, there were early drafts for toy-like automatrons. Basically, these were created by the Mad Toy Maker, as it stated here, and also they were going to act sort of similar to the matronized Patriots. So pretty much there were 4 different designs. There were a rabbit wearing a top hat and a tuxedo, owl with a night-themed suit with retractable blades attached to its arms, an elephant with a slow pro-like back-mounted cannon that would fire cannonballs, and a moth with painted wings like stained glass. Basically this concept was scrapped, and all of these toys later kind of evolved into the Songbird, so they were just basically scrapped so that they could make the Songbird. But the picture that you guys are seeing at the moment is the 2 designs of the rabbit and the owl. Pretty creepy looking, if you ask me. I think these would have been actually really cool, big sort of giant rabbit thing and an owl thing, but interesting enough. But this is pretty much how the Songbird came along. In the early beta demo for Bioshock Infinite, which you guys saw earlier on in the video, it is shown right at the end when the Songbird first appears that the Songbird sounds pretty much identical to a Big Daddy. I'll show you guys right now.
That wasn't him. That wasn't him. That's him!
As you guys can tell, it sounded pretty much identical to a Big Daddy in Bioshock 1 and 2. Interesting, and it's good that they decided to change it, because pretty fucking strange how it sounds exactly the same as a Big Daddy. Coincidence? I think not. Emporia in the 2011 E3 demo was vastly different from the final version. Originally in the IGN, Emporia would have been the 3rd level of the game that would feature the Columbia Mail, Major's Notion, Sundries and Novelties, and a dental office. If you guys know, the Major's Notion and Sundries and Novelties is actually in Battleship Bay, so for some reason they decided to switch around a lot of the stuff and basically change a few of the attractions in Emporia into Battleship Bay. Also, Emporia would have been a more clean version of it. It was more clean and stuff, not destroyed and stuff. When you're going to the Comstock house, it's all sort of like destroyed and like wrecked and stuff. So Emporia was meant to be more alive and stuff like that, and it was meant to be the Emporia before it was vandalized by Vox Pupil. But I don't know, maybe they just decided to go, hey, we're going to change it up, change some of the attractions in there, shift it to Battleship Bay, and we're gonna fuck it up so it seems more like, you know, as you're making your way to Comstock, you know, there's all this chaos and stuff while you're going there. So I suppose it makes more sense to, you know, fuck Emporia up sort of thing, rather than have, you know, Emporia set before it was vandalized by Vox. But interesting. And yeah. And lastly is tears. So tears were going to be seen a lot more in Bioshock Infinite originally. In one of the E3 2011 demos of Bioshock Infinite, we see quite a few tears that aren't actually in the final game. And one of these tears is the London tears, as you guys are seeing right here on screen now. This tear is actually not in the game, but is in the E3 2011 demo. Apparently, tears are going to be a lot more commonly seen, and more interaction was going to be kind of around them, kind of involved around them. But for some reason they decided, well, we're not going to have tears like where we see different sort of, you know, universes in different areas of the world. We're not going to see them as more commonly. Obviously we see Paris and I think a few more other destinations, but really not that many in the final game. So interesting concept and stuff. Interesting to see that there are planned to be way more tears in the game and more interaction with them, but then was scrapped for some reason. But however guys, that is it. That is most of the removed content of Bioshock Infinite. As you guys can tell, this is a very long video. Should be coming up to about 15-16 minutes, so this is definitely by far my longest removed content video, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more where that came from. Also guys, don't forget, leave your suggestions for my next removed content video in the comment section below, or alternatively you guys can go onto my Twitter and post suggestions there. And yeah, so please guys, like this video. A lot of effort and work and research goes into these videos, and it would also mean a lot if you guys haven't already subscribed. Then please do subscribe, because it helps me out a lot. And until next time guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.